Chapter 19, Antonina. I am here for you. I am what you perceive. You inherit this. This is yours as long as you stay. I have found myself trapped above the flesh, being touched, looking down on it from another place. My feelings run like blood through my body and into your hand, over your face. I can't wait to see you alone. I see you alone, although we are surrounded on all sides. Your scent belongs to me for a fleeting moment. This is all for you. Geographically, together once more, after all these years. I still have your handwriting with me. Within me is you. I want to cry. I am tortured by the fairies and mermaids. They're teaching me a new lesson. They kiss my clothes and make love to my mind. Sirens are a sea of lights. The light on the pavement is music. The buildings are covered in fog. It is raining. The dogs have retired for the night. The children are asleep. The movies that I see have no sex scenes, just violence, death, pain. This is an ignorant place, absent from the senses, losing ground in this world, moving on to higher planes. Merengue, salsa chips, Antonina, salsa dance, jukebox, moms, El Sombrero, Mexico and New York, disco, acting, telephone, margaritas. You are a fragile boy, a very delicate man, a perfumed room, a statuesque piñata that I hit at blindly trying to break you into the man that you should be. Your tongue is soft, your voice cracks. You will be a man if it kills me. You will become a man. Between two males who love me, they are drawn to each other as I ride the moon. Media Luna. In front of cars, when it is red outside, cartwheels on white lines, tea and wine, the same color liquid. One makes for swimming, the other an anchor. I am between two males who die as I hold their hands. They do not fight for me. Jealousy is outdated, new and old. Actually, somehow, both old. Washing dishes for Her Majesty, cleaning house for Your Highness, cooking for Her Eminence, bathing for his sake. Giving into destiny is like eating chocolate stars, eaten and glowing inside, seen in eyes, jelly on bread, pistachio ice cream, walking and thinking. Licked by the sun, welcomed by the night. The hallway of a book. Crisp bacon, grits and eggs, a kiss on the cheek. 2:23 a.m. Wednesday morning, October 24, 1995. I am surrounded by poison, even receive it from you. The red dew of grapes on my lips I sip from the glass that you gave. The quick dance that you taught me in Mama's family restaurant. Your finger pulled from my mouth. Andina in front of me. Don't sit there, you command. She obeys. Your control is more fierce than wine. You seduce me in the presence of your boyfriend. I have followed you this far. We have followed each other. You are on my mind. Even in San Francisco, where I sleep on the floor, the same as New York. Nothing that I own is mine. Not even my words. I want to give up. To go where? Surrounded by poison deeply rooted in the soil about me, a long walk will cure the urge to walk backwards. The clocks here are all wrong, an hour ahead. When it is 11:30 p.m., 1:20 a.m. resounds on the dashboard. The clocks at the travel agency are all different in Soho. I stand on a clock and see my shadow in the sun. It is quite sunny in California, makes for one mode of thought. The beautiful seasons are lost. Que lindo. Ahí. Follow me to places that slowly unfurl before us, climb deeper into synapses. Time elapses. Time discovered an element that was there all along. I'm convinced that there is another way. It frightens me. Everything frightens me. Yet I trudge on even more fierce than before. A law of nature, espresso not the way to go, vertigo when higher learning is concerned. The fear of falling from positions allotted, granted, asked for. There are still questions of action, means of compassion. The world moves at many paces all at once. 2:42 a.m. The numbers must be watched, regulated, recorded. Submission to the hereafter, now. Even when they say wait, Marrakesh, who is they? They have no name other than they. Everyone talks about them. In Morocco, the men wear the same cloth over their clothes. This cloth is the jalabiya. No matter how rich or poor they may be, 10 blind men singing for alms, an overwhelming sight, fishermen at the wharf, a seal surfaces, it disappears into the ocean. The ocean is its mother and lover. Maybe she will adopt me, that older woman who has had her eye out for new blood. Perhaps she will ride the bunny quickly, sweetly, with that experienced, lengthy stride, turn on her side and close her eyes while I kiss her gently. I'd hold her next to me and become one instead of two. Fulfill my longing described by my pen. After that affair, the search begins again. Nearer to thee, Lord, nearer to thee. She on her knees, sacrilegiously, worshiping the seed of creativity, lovingly extolling what she thinks will deliver her past, being attractive once more upon a time. There lived a lady highly esteemed by peers, and the devouring public led slowly into slaughter, chased by the same tribe, glib, sunken in, driving backwards into shallow water. Arise and be baptized, lady, in the kisses of the prince of malediction, escorted in his coach, pumpkin. Hiya, hiya, scree, pumpernickel scree. Where you come from, lady? You coming with me, I suppose. Frankly, I was just thinking the same thing. Word jumble, scrambled eggs, colors swirling through her head. She accepted the gesture of the maledictic jester with a wicked grin. He invited her in his hungry palace with snow, capped ballast, and iron bars. Beware of the hog, a vicious swine came creeping in. She recognized the hair of his chinny chin chin. Skin him alive, she chimed, the pig or me, how the prince. It is almost the hour for festivities to begin. From the ceiling dropped Pain, the quaint little dwarf, hobbled out the door and into the garden. From the ceiling dropped Pain, a quaint little dwarf hobbled out the door and into the garden to smell the roses. Red, white, none were black because when they were kindly taken back. The day was hot, lips were parched. The prince changed into a white shirt and marched past the lady. The palladium was ready, guests were received. Knights in armor with their swords sheathed, glistened in suits christened in Vaseline, makes for good slippage between cleavage clean. Pain with a bouquet of roses in hand, told Lady that he'd be her man. She accepted. Lady left the prince alone, complacent and bereft. Chapter 20, Christmas time. Sarah told me how she'd been badly treated at the hospital. They didn't treat me with respect until they found out that I had an education. They didn't treat me with respect until they found out that I was a journalist. Veruca was 6 feet tall. John told a story about two boys holding up a t-shirt store. This is the same story Veruca told me about on the way to buy cigarettes. At least these people told the truth. John asked for Coke, then he asked for another glass of vodka with lime and 4 ice cubes. Veruca waited on John hand and foot. The goose was placed on the table along with the ashtray, turkey, cranberry sauce, the 2 types of stuffing, one with pistachio, chestnut gravy, sweet potatoes, squash, salsa, vinegar, dressing. They handed the pots from person to person. A man called Emil. He was from a town that was in between Italy, Croatia, and some other regions. He smiled a tattered smile and had stringy hair. This crowd liked to hang out at the Mars Bar. Last night, Christmas Eve, I drank mushroom tea. Sarah got everyone's attention. I don't like mushrooms, said John. They don't do anything for me. Norman sat at the head of the table. My mother was always bleeding from her palms. She had stigmata. Your mother did what? Oh, that's just reefer talk, Jim howled. Veruca put her hand on Jim's knee and asked for a cigarette. I don't watch football anymore, just pornographic films. I figured why ask for girls when I could watch them? The dancing roommate served everyone before she sat down to eat. People clapped when John finished his story. The cat was aggravated. It did not appear. I called Juliet. She asked me to come over. Emil played a grunge tape. Veruca was wearing lederhosen. Norman smoked Chesterfield unfiltered cigarettes. He and Veruca worked together. They worked in a building designed by a famous Norwegian architect. I told her that I had to leave. I was going to make brownies with Julieta. She stopped me at the door and said that it would be rude if I left. Veruca's roommate also felt that I was being rude. I said goodbye to everyone and thanked John for the story. Gerald was 65 years old. John was also in his 60s. The kitchen was crowded. The food was in pans on the floor. The gate to hell was slowly closing. The dancing roommate was vehement. "You cannot leave!" I kissed Veruca at the door with the hall light off. I decided to stay a bit longer. I am married, but we are not together. I touched her breast as we kissed and put my fingers in the back of her lederhosen. Veruca was 33 years old. The grunge music was turned off. I put in Coltrane Transitions. Michael, the head of the Angels, was wearing a t-shirt that read, "The Mars Bar." Elias liked the Mars Bar. The apple pie was served with whipped cream. I left the party and arrived at Julietta's. She was placing numbers in her computer. The next morning, I flushed the toilet and the toilet backed up. Thus, the smell. Distinctive smells at Julietta's. Spray paint, brownies, overflowed toilet debris. The two-bedroom was filled with a tone of smell. The brownies were the most pleasing. The doors to the bedrooms were off the hinges. The bathroom had a door. The litter box for the cat was there. A closed curtain sealed the tub. 2 black towels, 2 robes, a rack of movies. Most of the films were her personal projects, other films to grace the shelf. Blow Up director Antonioni Eisenstein, score by Prokofiev. The title, Nevsky. A pornographic film given her by her 34-year-old boyfriend, Voyeur 3. A film by Ed Wood, Julietta, LA. You have dialed 718-782-9078. I am not home, but if you leave a message, I will get back to you as soon as I get home. I slept in her bed again. The cat jumped onto the bed and ran along my leg the whole night. The cat would come onto my face and purr. I threw it off the bed throughout the night. The cat invaded my dreams. I was awakened from a dream of Hallie and her daughter. Having written about her, the spirit of the beautiful was summoned to my dream. We were in a cabin. She was tanned and naked. The fireplace was lit. The sun was out. She was sweaty and handed me a miniature version of a grown woman. Woke up and threw the cat off the bed by its head. I threatened the cat by hissing and putting my hand over its face. Confusion. The party that I was invited to for Christmas changed my idea of holidays. A party for outcasts, for those people who had no place to go. I was supposed to go to my family's home in Queens. I did not make it. The whole of Christmas Day, I waited for her phone call. She called in the evening. "Hello, this may seem to be a phone message, but it is really a telepathic transmission from the Christmas snail. I invite you for a drink after you return from your Christmas dinner. I felt too weird to go to Queens today. Please accept my apology." I looked at the house and stared at the ceiling that looked like whipped cream. There was whipped cream on the apple pie at the dinner party. The woman at the door was Norwegian. She greeted me with a kiss on the cheek. I arrived with John, a writer. He was missing teeth. Norman and Gerald were watching television in the other room. I was having a cigarette with Tom and Veruca. I poured a glass of wine and examined the selection of cheese. There were 2 types of sausage, sweet and spicy. The bottle of tequila was half empty. Veruca and her dancing roommate were sharing the bottle of tequila. "We're out of cigarettes," Veruca cried. The dancing roommate checked the turkey. "These chestnuts will be great on the turkey." This was the level of what had been deemed super world. The people at this dinner party lived hard and studied hard. Jim sat down and had a glass of vodka. He stumbled out of the bathroom. They're watching football in the other room. A bunch of faggots. Men bent over in tight pants. At least they smoked some reefer. We sat at the table for dinner. Norman is a dictionary. We don't call him an etymologist. "My father is an etymologist," said Sarah. Chapter 21, Finny Kua. She thought I was in Panama, which is not too safe nowadays. I told her months ago that I would be gone. "Happy Christmas." She answered my voice with a happiness seldom felt from her conversation. "What are you doing for New Year's?" I wasn't doing anything. "I'm going to Memphis or maybe Corpus." "Good, I'll go too," I thought, and said this. "Who are you staying with in Memphis?" "Gilbert." Gilbert was a writer at the first paper that I slaved for. As a summer intern, I was allowed to visit show for free, good compensation for hours of filing the pieces on upcoming events. It was a rush to see my name in the crisp, grayish paper. 5 years passed since that job. I only knew Gilbert from a brief meeting, but he seemed good-natured enough. I'll stop by on my way from Austin. All that I could think of was saloons and deserted towns with dusty banisters. A trip in high school had us, a few privileged students, shipped by bus to Texas capital. There was a 16-year-old on the bus with dreadlocks, which I admired. I wanted my hair to be similar to that. At the time, my hair was high on the top, close on the sides. We walked in the aisles of the bus with music blasting. My best friend was on that trip, and we sang songs, lost in our own little corner of the bus. I strolled into the area where girls from another magnet school were sitting. This invasion of their territory was welcome. The girls greeted me. I sat next to one black girl with fine permed hair and flawless. We talked a while, and we were introduced to the others. The girls were beautiful dancers. One girl had short legs, round buttocks, full red lipstick, and smelled of pomade. Her light-colored skin, accented by the uncommon redness of her nails, perfectly manicured, was close to the tones of Finney's arms. Finney knocked on my door and stood sideways, so as to avoid full contact with my body. "How are you? I haven't seen you in such a long time. Your hair is different." Her hair was always different. I got the impression that she was constantly in search of her place in the world. When alone, we talked about life and its treasures. When we were around others, our rapport was incompatible. She would accuse me of pushing her buttons. A friend of mine met me 4 years after high school at his home. We discussed the preparation and setting of our high school. After hours of intense discussion, our conclusion was 32 flavors of people exist in the world. There were 103 people in our high school, an ample sample of the flavors. Certain characters were dealt with in certain ways. These characters were memorized and studied well within 4 years of high school. Our senses were more acute than most in discerning what type of flavor a person was. I showed Finney to my brother's bedroom, which had 2 beds. "You'll sleep over there," she pointed to the bed parallel to hers. "No, I will sleep on the couch." "No, sleep in here, just like a slumber party." She liked my mother's antique furniture, family heirlooms of a living grandmother. The past months had been spent in reconstruction of my childhood. I wanted my future to be focused on positive energies gained from reminiscences. If I could decide what made me happy as a child, I would be able to revert as I progressed. There was a girl next door who would guide me through adventures. Some adventures included props such as Barbie and nature. She asked her father to leave a circular hedge of grass trimmed so that we could pretend that it was an island. Jennifer Golden was from Ohio. One day we baked cookies from a recipe that I brought home from class in elementary school. The cookies were from a book created by Bloom. Bloom also had a taxonomy. Bloom's taxonomy was a syllabus to the creative process: hypothesis, thesis, brainstorming, thesis, antithesis. The teachers are odd. Their positions are powerful indeed. The things that a teacher chooses as posts are signals that appear in a child's mind for years to come. The students are shaped by the examples presented and the words uttered, even without the faintest thought. Children are little tanks, ingesting everything around them. The goodness of a second grade teacher is instilled inside of me, even this day, while I sit and contemplate the austerity of God while listening to Schnicke's Symphony No. 4. Finney is not impressed with Schnicke. I try to sleep in the truck as it bounces along the highway. She is tired of talking. We discussed her Christmas journal. She would deny that she is an artist, but I feel that her art is what most art should be. She constructs. Most of the items are made from inexpensive materials and have their own individual personality. She would be a great student. Students at universities are most unaware that they are free to explore the world without obligation. Nothing that they do is untimely. It is all a process of incongruent fallacies. Myths set before them in study now, pay later circumstance. Most students are moved through the school system without much regard to their degree of education. Finney contemplated school, decided not to go, and stayed away from most people in school. I was trying to convince her that the world operated on levels and that each level accepted its particular members. No matter how hard she tried, she was destined to stay in a temporary position. She moved silently from place to place. She tried to convince me that marriage was the only savior in the world. Love. I felt that she may want to marry me. Wouldn't that be fun? Yeah, it would. However, we could not be linked. I was too far outside of her present world, and the levels that we were on did not coincide. Her goal was children, a nice house with a pleasing husband, and scheduled family vacations. Unfortunately, my mind did not work that way. Marriage would be fine, but not as a restriction or as a footstool to some other imagined happiness. Nothing should be trusted as a means to an ending that is supposedly better than the one without that particular addition. We talked about her coldness. Why didn't she show affection? And what did she look for in a man? The answers were average. Someone who loves me and accepts my love. I entered into a hopeless tirade about the uselessness of things in the world and the beauty of God through nature and the universe. She nodded solemnly and talked about her youth when she would study the Bible. The only hurdle was the people who attended her congregation. God is to be personalized, Finney, not treated as an idol or a name. He is to live within. I wanted to share peace. Then we talked about pornography. I bought some red pumps, just like the ones in pornos. That's tacky. I like pornos. I like them too. Chapter 22, Gree. There was sushi being handed to me. This was left by some people eating here. All day had been the extreme. Being part of a collective fashion show, running away from a mad woman. I delved into the world of Christiania and cavorted with the devil. At least he believed that he was the devil. He was not. Playing with a sewing machine does not make one evil, no matter how much he renders himself so. Shortly after, the girl was brought to the counter and sold like marshmallow cream. A center devoted to the clink, a beacon devoted to light. The pajamas were green. A maniac asked permission to settle next to the true players. Even years after the ebony was interested in saying something cool, even though the thought patterns were erased and the uniform was presented in pastel cloisters. Dreaming the impossible was the same as not moving again after a number of years. The smoke would not clear. The cleverness, unyielding, fell over the shoelace. Love-stricken abandon, odors and fissures. They tried to send anonymous packages, but for the most part, it was a tireless effort. Buildings, billions, operators in towers. The scene was set, the mood was somber. Emotions drizzled. To be blessed to the outer limit and processed to the gills was a paramount sufferer. A rectangle gliding, glib, sounding backlash. She handed me sushi, and all of the others reached for it in an expanded, drunken stupor. This is not really for you. Scavengers, lauding themselves, patting themselves on the back for being the biggest slice bastards that they knew. If they pretended to have some sort of significance, then maybe they could surpass themselves and actually create a need for their nothingness. Which of you has talent? The bartender asked quizzically. Oh well, no hands were raised. He sold them a jar of sake. The day that pleasure loomed above was the same as gray matter. Shillings later, dust. A distant explanation had the hand soldier worried about selling strip metal. Minds collided. Boulders crashed to the ground. Perhaps we could song and dance our way to the clueless behavior. A single dash for preempted emptiness. She shrugged her shoulders as she moved on towards a peacemaker. The silent gasp sent heart-rending cries towards the Outer Banks. She was definitely running things. We parked the car next to a hydrant. Are those your last rites? One Dalmatian was as good as the next in this case. I'll take two. Stirring in a blanket, billowing castor oil plate refurbished, embellished the light, hook, line, and sinker. Some of the groupies did not know what to expect. Climbing higher and higher, wiping the sweat off of one's brow, interpretation pending. The slave master was not known. The quiet inquisitor, happenstance, danceware. We are so intelligent, the guileless executioner rendered the encounter hapless. Helpless kittens caught in trees begged forgiveness from the further infuriated with mankind. If we could just hammer our way through this. Someone handed the berserk a hammer, and proceeds were donated to scam artists flying their arms high above them. The sacrifice journalist stains to provide a golden stocking to dishevel the pomade. Pomegranate penetrated placebo. As the waitress turned darker, shades of lipstick subdued. Police wandered through the garbage collecting goulash and soup. Perhaps we could slaughter more, came a call from the kitchen. Laughing gas was emulsion tested blank hammer. Could you find medical grade? I would hope so. Conversation turned to garter talk. Gutter snipes snipped the bandwagon, adjusted their sensuous intelligence, and fled candor. Well, actually, the spellbinding text kept the book bound for the new revelation pending. Goose me, goose down. Those girls were clearly showing out. The stories where bad things happen are always more interesting. No, you will not do that. I will do as I want, was the response. Repose. Someone reclaimed speech as the day turned to a factual close. If the cauldron were not yet hot, then placebo's placebo channel is the broken lingo. The fish store shopkeeper was not having it. Pushing up on someone could be the same as nomenclature aqueduct. Chapter 23. Ask. The plane landed. Oh, hello, everyone. I was drunk. The person next to me was a businessman from Denmark. He had been living in Canada and owned a travel agency. I made my way to the restroom on the plane and checked my appearance. I was wearing leather pants that tied up the front. It was going to be cold in Copenhagen, so I wore my fur coat also. I was very warm on the plane. The man and I talked. I told him that I was an artist and that I was going to meet my girlfriend. She was absolutely splendid. We drank a lot. The man was drinking scotch and soda. I was drinking white wine. On SAS, you are allowed to booze it up. That is exactly what we were doing. Soon, I was drawing pictures for him on paper that I had with me. At one moment, I spilled some wine on the paper. He laughed and I as well. We decided that he would have the drawing. I signed it. This will be one of my favorite drawings. The man sat and politely admired the drawing. Later on in the flight, I told the bartender how beautiful she was. She said thank you and handed me a glass of champagne. The woman's eyes were brown. She had nice calves and a boyfriend who was asleep in the back of the plane. A young girl was on the plane doing her homework. I sat with her and offered my assistance. The movie came on and her mother kept bringing me little bottles of wine. Kierkegaard was sad because of the darkness and the fact that his name means graveyard. I left the flight very drunk and ran into the arms of my girlfriend there. She was upset that I did not have any money. When we got to her house, she was preparing dinner when a woman called. It was the stewardess. She wanted to meet for drinks. I assured her that we would not be meeting for drinks. Gree was angry now. From that moment on, the situation turned sour. I had no choice but to go and play on the street. She smiled a wicked smile, and the heavens turned to darkness. Ask, her son, became more and more attached. It seemed as if everything would take a turn for the worse. Each mirror around us mimicked the farce that was only going to change if I left. All arrows pointed to the center of the chopping block. I was fast on my way there. The money that I was making playing music in the street was not enough. I had to do some modeling also. There was lots of walking from one tainted situation to the other. The clothes from one fashion camp were those of a fairy tale. The other had a mixture of blood and porno slut. It was a great combination. They waltzed around buildings and slithered past the Queen's Palace. Each and every attempt at fun that I had would turn desperately into tragedy. Near the end of my stay and the fashion show, my clothing arrived in Maria's car. Maria was very confused and asked what was in the car with her. He jumped from seat to seat like a little monkey. I was deeply hurt to see him having so much fun as I suffered. I took the clothes and headed toward the bus. No one that I asked would be able to let me stay at their house for the night. I stayed in the train station. I almost fell asleep when the police told me that I would not be able to stay there. I left the station and went to play music in the street. I played for 10 minutes before a guy came up to me and did push-ups. He asked me why I had all my clothes with me. I explained how I had been kicked out of my girlfriend's house and that I was homeless. He told me that he did not have any money, but that he would buy me drinks with his credit card. We hung out for a while, and the hours went by quickly. He had to pick up a friend of his. She was a brunette with big breasts and did not speak English that well. We went to a pornographic theater and watched some porn while drinking beer. I went upstairs to look for one of the guys who was with us. He was in one of the multiple viewing rooms. I watched as two Chinese women with their shirts off gave an old man a hand job. The woman looked at me, and I figured that it was time to leave. We went to the girl's house and ordered pizza. The pizza was great. It was in Roskilde. This place is only 20 kilometers from Copenhagen. The next morning, He dropped me off at the airport. I had contacted my mother and was relying on her to send me some money from Texas. I went to find out the price of the ticket. The ticket was reasonable. I was heartbroken and my world seemed shattered. The two of us had created a fantasy world that came to a crashing halt. We decided to end the relationship. When I told her that my mom had sent the money and I was going home, we walked to a Chinese food place and ordered sweet and sour pork. We ate the pork across the street from where the Mexicans were playing flute music. She walked me to the train. I hugged her goodbye as she cried. She was wearing a black knit sweater with a hood. Chapter 24. Been there, done that. I have seen the video. I know which way you want to go. Well, let that be as it may, all the same anyway for you every day. I've been searching for her and drowned my sorrow. Never say a word. The gates were silver. If you came to me, then I'd be happy. Get a car, get a computer. The invention of time travel exists in the ultimate wax blistering, belly scream reaction. The benefactor pages the purple aceless coverlet. Ask you to give it back, that's all I ever had. Now that it's gone, that's all I ever had. Forward and on its back, that's all I ever had. You're feeling the pressure brought on by your partner, the aero pressure, faith you cannot measure. You're feeling the pressure, nice refresher, optimum canister, white flag banister, holy roller coaster, oil-basted castor. There's a spring that flows into the Delta region when we disagree. I try to find the reason for the springs that's flowing coming as we go far away. Wings of elephants spring on the top of my desire, moving desperately to soothe this earthly fire. Close to flames, I must perspire. Swing on trees built from steel belt tires. Close to us and know that our agreeing makes for better trust. Wrenched in the boat, the cave with many dancing, very young and consequential, prudential, earthquake, and stolen property. Blackie. Racist, fix it up. Applied to the same anarchy that made the sad in the beginning, the moods were only a part of the aching monotony that turned out to be revised on the visionary route plunged into the downfall of empires led by the hand. Drugstore wishes playing in secrecy or donuts squeezed, tassels embedded possibilities, finished the dashes, daisies, and creme fraiche. Dungarees and fancy things, shoes were fancy, eyes were fancy, codes were fancy. The car hot, so fancy yet functional. Come drive this bus, fuzzy gang totter and chili con carne. Eating fester spray jug of cotton laced with hunger slime feather castle light weight orange. Enemy squared to degrees unpleasurable. Feeding the cat was like finishing a bottle of cognac all by your lonesome. Kathy Cream Cheese made sandwiches for all of the girls in the fantasy booth. Crammed waiters on the third with broccoli and prison colors. Embraced the possibility of Lyme disease. Side of the chameleon monkey using polish iridium, hankering for the populace. Possibility to conclude the decision to end up at the course of tiny destinations and puzzle them. Finger in the socket, arm tucked to sputter page conflict in the prenuptial agreement, agrarian society, and the humble freelance rancor of eviction. Desdemona moved the Samson figurine in all of the directions. Right, like a conclusion in heavy hierarchy of heartache. Life changed course too soon to catch up and fall behind on the suggestion of the forefathers 68 years before the Pinochet, clumsy-eyed, repented. Seize the moment, take a chance. Can't stop the feeling of romance. Sky, dove, take flight to me. Sky dove, take flight to me. Can find celebrity. Caution, handle me with care. Now take off your underwear. Sing sweet songstress, grass is blowing just in time. Take your time. I'm feeling you, it's right. I'm seeing you, I'm having you tonight. Spread the butter on your toes. Tell me, lover, how it goes. Grace be unto everyone. Let your hair down, have some fun. Why do you want to hate me so much? It's Cantonese. Bring you to your knees. A stadium who's watching him. The player role has got to go. To the red line. Hot to hit friend from front to back. The Cadillac is just in time. It's so sublime to do the strut. Say what I like. The temperate is not for this. Your call to luck is guys like us. The Valentine was never mind, like, never mind, a waste of time. Some cyanide could help you hide. It's tantamount to the same amount. Won't squash the grid. See what they did? Police patrol a pot of gold to watch the game. Gonna rent the same as all of them. You start to grin. I hit the chin. Great for a slap. Gonna get a love tap. It's the compromise. You're hypnotized between your thighs. Those satellites. Do you still want to hate me so much? Why do you want to hate me so much? Reaped the solid soul of sold ideals and syncretic oak. Dirge hospital pants and glass pyrotechniques. A complete circle of commissioned glass and beads brought together by drinks in Everclear. Possibility of Richard Sphinx toasted granules of barbiturate tumble in dry lexicon of concrete. Death Star grow up and leave a whim and wish of control, lost love, leave, thrown hell, the contour, jellied artistry, and mega complaint, complacency. So many times the hint heard through thick and thin, throughout the reprobate, iron retrograde, and hustle improvement. Staring nude, looking around was arabesque carriage. A solemn vow to rearrange the concoction involved in the piano stem of names changed and positions discussed. The nature of the purple hanger could bring about the study of the challenges needed to ordain the future cuckolds of men dressed the part to ingest the golden fleece of a complete and utter conundrum. Cover over the foreign exchange rate, and the cuddle squad took over for Langston Hughes, talked about on the train. The Labrador Cake Land Blues brother troubleshooting arrogance of the braided hair scenario. Television locomotive not hard pressed to fire the same dipsy doodle provided for in the most joyful of joys in the recorded history of Franklin. Positive recorder poser in Flip Wilson's abject console. Pair of dice. Palisade in particular. Folkways. Iron toe discipline was a landscape of hunchback, culpable post, freaky Doberman, fool, cradle, tools, hamstrings, and folding chairs, berries, and recycled handshakes done for the outset of doer, daily, alternate, fun boat. Show of damaging nylon Teflon. Telephone and misdemeanors. Spent all day following the tail trail up to coming chagrin. Attitude in reprogramming. Embarkation of platitudes in the Fogarty. Passable. Basket and wearing pole position. Arguments with the well-placed floor diagrams stand up with cuddle forms and freezer burns. Bunnies and chloroform. The reaction to the chloroform was recorded in a 15-day study with pilgrims and touchstone telephones, or the arches of harsh-colored randomness. Vendetta, ice cream smeared on the chin of smack and down the rotor Motorola, odor eater. Going to see the pilot was like exploring underhanded lifestyles and institutions. Taste test and solid confusion were deeply embedded on the fourth string. The difference between Candy and Hills of Blonde. Ridicule the tiger for continuing in the swan direction, unable to sequence the 5-point Afro Mall on the way out. Destined to repeat the soul battle continuation of Republic duct tape and subtle differences. The fourth indifference was an infallible workspace, shed in all filibuster, ransacked the optimum folding chair. Velma tossed Liz, climb and altitude. Forbade the pumpkin arranged a debut of flounder or tic-tacs enclosed in a meeting. Always nice to hear the sound of your own voice bleeding through the cover letter in the Spawn Shine ticket booth where they both still live and love. Even mistaken for others, bygones and red lights, windows and torn foolery. The Cavern of Youth. Bud-tested fever blister cannon and Ayatollah, Iota. Envision Friendship Library. Footlights and windmills, grain. Union revision and caught the newborn prey to be dealt with. Killed on the attack of a black dog fight, rank, rattle, and roll for the tryst of December until the 10th or vice versa. Everyone pretended that the cost of time role played a fortune teller with arms held high. Open wide and fix the pants twice over clover. Cove dove chickpea backyard jeans. Jeans pulling the moist. Luscious Lara pretty baby. Pollen Sloan till Wednesday. A spell hex vanquished. Apparel gone now. Luscious Laura pretty baby. Jesus when says the Virgin Mary. Nice to meet you, Alpha Rabbi. Please pour another. Towels flown in rooms, obliged to bazaar. Magazine controls, hot rush wind, rush in and out. Living in darkness, peace could be deranged. Positively extinct, distressed the playtime mode. Disagree extreme. You came with me without any money. Dissension is pagan. In my dream, there were so many places to sleep. In my bed, the prayers were more than welcome. A ballad behind the curtain played second string to the observer. Deep dish dissolved. Pedagogue. Penal code rapture. Rapscallion and the secret passageway stored in a distant silence. The noise covered the top of the mountain. Dripping wax. Back at the dragon's lair. Move on, subway traitor. Move on. It gets dark up there. Way up on top. It's like a nightmare. A dream that won't stop. Curly-haired gentleman saying things that he's never seen. The groceries are starting to bleed. I do not need this imagery. My imagination is running wild. Right into the forest. He got her to come closer. Each step like molasses. Each step like a headache. Blueberry lemonade, escapades, and production cost. At a loss for words. You love to own things, own on your own. You love to leave things alone. You love ice cream in the spring. You love passion and clumsy things. Role-playing games, a roll romp in the park. 16 trees filled the evergreen toll blanket. A spilled glass of white wine stained the membrane. Thirsty story and picture books. Thinking about the ceiling, multitasking. Basking in the bayonet. Never fret, life is nigh. A piece of paper, cleanse the turnstile. The beginning of hopscotch. Pause for the plausibility of steak, lust, rust, encrusted earthquake. The feeling of remorse, a tank filled with water talk. Funny shaped mind rape and further to do. That look took the same as before red skirt. Red head, halter top, and discovery stockings. Demonic trailblazer. The only thing that they wanted to listen to was the squish squelch theory raised by the rascal provided with a good chance to operate on the unreal. And oprobate, the sister vestige confused lackey supplies and gutted. Fish, heritage, green tear gas, and a special bubble frisky and soldier-like. Welcome to no sensibility and the lack of communication all at once. Phoebe on the riser crushed by rainfall and good time truck. List lasted until the gross indifference settled and the order was handed us on a big platter rummaging through the sarcastic loom. Controlled nose bleeding calls to order the grand cycle, uniform upbringing. Attire and words is what they understand. Relax and hand it to them on a great big headache head cheese. Hogshead cheese. Lettuce. Claudius brooding luck ran out. A spy ring set up in Chattanooga. Welsh Hammerstein and Livingston paycheck. The grape-studded banana pocket broke the cobblestone and disenfranchised the subject of availability. The whisper of lip to glass discomfort and observance of boredom. The smile seeps into the gleaming candlelit candelabra abracadabra. A fine stool you have there. Is it from Minnesota? DeSoto Clinic and feeling of shots for enlightenment and insight, ball bouncing throughout the night. A course one performance in the antimatter of Ultra Brush and incandescent traveler's insurance erased from the decollage of the potentate. Vegetable stands demand the forthright audition. An enamel pastry chef claimed Ezekiel for the 14th. What day is this? The judge declared, aired out the room and fondled the nightmare brewing behind the dentist chair. That gaze not at all complacent. Breaking nails, dining in darkness, out chartreuse, Mount Olympus, half gaming, and the ritual of duck sauce at the convenience store. Who took all of the grief out of the controller of yoga? Each day the same situation, ever-binding explanation, exploding ribbon combination, contemplating rain, a splendid nighttime excursion into a delightful perversion, timetables and conversions, whoever needs this the longest, a simple behest and digest clause made way for invitations. You still care what's hidden in there. You still know which way to go. Crystal chamber, donated duck sauce, a plantation of being with little horses, hissed, ghost spirit. Introducing a splitting atom time, split over the side of pop tendencies and crayon likeness, a splendid nighttime excursion into a delightful perversion, timetables and conversions, whoever needs this the longest, a simple behest, the digestive clause made way for invitations. Bruce Faber, you sound retarded. Why cause lecture slick candy stealer? Nowadays, rock and roll stars are surrounded by the shroud enshrined on the lips in bands, rubber-twisted colloquialism. I read a poem about someone left on the couch. Programmed the devilish syndrome of dedicated heat servants, dogma took the Advil, secret off the shelf, demons restless and lessless. Suppose too much the dawn of time was enough to control the distant order of the universe. We collided simple enough, you raged out, fake ultra science. The aftermath beckoned forgiveness, sensual quarter moon life form, excelled vast samba, granted visibility. I was silly enough to envision peace with all these police running about. Some real Caesar's Palace type bullshit. Girls love him. They were unaware that the style was not necessarily the most involved. A sob story captured the strings attached. Pin a can, seek the tidal wave, a jar of good. These words were spoken by the guru, positioned on the glass rod, standing on one foot. The guru of what? Certain disdainful pleasures capitulated in a story, filed song, and dance under the ranks of chimera, green card. Husbands and wives, the fearful saw the fearless, a test of gratitude deep in their eyes, all horny and bothered. The ranks opened up, a file of pre-war intensity, group sex. Scenes were vivid, rampant pictures, K. Gordon, get up on the good foot. Pink towels were thrown in, each settler was good for a dime or more. The plaintiff rinsed his couture and headed to the elevator. Spanish love dance, coupledom broadcast area. A filibuster derived the most horrific plan. What if I were to soldier the front and devise a plan of eye sorcery? Escape the drastic causeway, community center. Bold gauze release, a relative of no one. The wordplay suggested that a caramelized duster be in order. Human sacrifice. You must be crazy or something. You burst a lung, Gregory, a broken nerve, Shadow Man disaster series, Purple Embankment, the heart starved, Ultra Demon, spoke successful language, very persuasive. Bubblegum, Gucci start, go pleasure hitting. A stream of words which are the opposite, breathing slowly. Speech impediments, a stamp impending, a discarded totem pole, strictly strychnine, Barber Bobby socks. Penetrate the vibrant long tissue, greater shun churning. Gretel paused succinctly. Boredom tyrant, it is up to you, Cherry Blossom. You are magic incarnate. Delve into the basic funding. The order of business is truth. Spoken word artist. The bird dawned on a frigid turnover. Refrigerate intimate innermost. The plan was crucial. Heidi broke a nail, reaching into the cavern with solid genus. 200,000 worth. Splendid heist. Maps of the world take great soldiers to march with. Who holds this plastic ring? This plastic ring is the potion called for. Distant to kin, affair taken from the belly up. Are those your puppy dog eyes, bedeviled exposure, cumbersome delight? A rogue planted Yuletide greetings, visiting the boy who left the asylum for the good of mankind. Revel in the bombshell. The blind bombshell. Suppose that this is all good for the kingdom. Arise and be baptized in the armored car. Titillate, kind King Apollonia. The queen's answer to justice served. Curb your appetite. Rest on the wings of desire. Wrestle the plumber's butt. Take shelter in divine comedy. Each pressure was the new. Opposed green. Pilots are everlasting. Did your pie crust saunter backwards? Evil alkalite. Evil, evil acolyte. Punishable by the hero's gaze. We are doomed to practice a personable satellite situation. You brought this upon yourself. You found the origin of dialect. You are the newest form of malice, who is the opposite of bunny. Chagrin is the power of ample stigma. I confirmed to hold a position not offered. Listen to the quails lying mainly on the plain. A spark burst of green. The till is under fire. Rambunctious earnings, unctuous tides. The Christian was the first to recognize that the tool would be doused. Child brings forth clumsy, abandoned, too much bling. Bling for the king of Altissimo. The commas and contents surface to bring about the shining change. A burst of brisk cold air, a screeching torrent of rain overcast the Barbary coast, golden sunset, wired stent, art hero, criminal, touring the slow, sin tonight, Vanderbilt. The archetype of reason gives birth to the enhanced go-go twister, supple loss in a penchant, disenchantment and delight. Scuba dive, die on drugs, purposeful mishap. Sometimes it just goes that way. The trail was sexier than the girl, not afraid to speak. The cluster hit the feather deranged and implemented with the advent of time. I called and you answered, swerving into the side of the road. The twisted curb. Somebody's been sleeping on the wrong side of the bed, lost in your thoughts. Even credits got bedhead towards the millennium. This is dedicated to the auspices of thought, the danger of leaving. You let life go by like nothing ever happened. Humans hiding deep within, without. Sponge helix, drowning in the sand, disposition of pending. Alternative shelving, poison settlement condition, the pleasure is all mine. Step remotely to the good wing era, please the settlement, shuck and jive, tectronics. There's so much between us. You being mean, me being nice on occasion. Those same two chords rummaging into the sunset throughout the evening and a pattern born then adjusted, entrusted to sight or spider. She was always trying to get naked. The fling held the intestine with ardor and grandeur. A small plant. Scared hijinks for a split batter lion fighting tiger taken for a sprint or romp in the forest. I guess that daytime leads to playtime and an invisible field. They felt long, icy tails, gales of hay. The mainstay is mainstream coupe de ville, soaring above the public, same as public distortion. No communication, do everyone exposing you. Tidy water plaything. She sings the same as I do. Turn down that up-cap interloper groping for international duress. Fabricated punching bag, talked too much to be appreciated. Rafters set out by the guards and rations flowing from piston to an alternate set of tactile servitude. Lapel sanctioned panhandle erection straight to the detective agency. Spilled a gallon of soup on the extreme Campbell cowbell symbol. Understanding was wrought with dream elders claiming ethereal arrangements of polished hands and hamstrings surviving the will and the kite in the field bleaching the savory subtleties of knee action high list. A ride gone total rinse in the distance. Rise and shine, sleepyheads, in the daytime and mark out night loneliness. Goodbye. She sprayed perfume mouth water into star-spangled sky, then departed along with my soul in her shoulders, stomach, and arms. The phrase began with armistice, ended in treaty, ground groveling, stale bread steeped Reginald in a stew of quarter-round and pleasantries. Concierge roamed aimlessly along the corridor, smiling at Candle Children's toy workshop for genius collectors. Then the admission bent down towards family matters, a trivial Volvo license plate for personal gain. The touch of her skin was unbelievable, a malleable white, freckles, and angel's kisses. Detour from the runaway psychosemantic syndrome. "You're always drunk," was the reply. The ankle was the positively most luxe part. Little toes frozen and forgotten till defrosted between tongue, gum bath. We sat, contempo life, disappearing act. She was harder to reach than I imagined, saddened by her return. We were warm in flesh, so young, frightened frail, supple pleasure, heart beat on top of the gentle caress from her hand about mine. Your arm is heavy. Desire was nigh, I cried. Looking at her was beyond breakable intentions. The Russians encompassed glow. Overstood the fact that she would rise out of nowhere in return. Calling the cauldron of fire mooning over the brooding incandescent altercation. Can I fax you my heart or just blood from coarse veins? All the same, she was gone. Came close to flower pollen. The thought was reticent, relevant, and relative to change. Hospitals, oysters, complications, variations, rampage of distant calls, a wild source of redemption made exclusive by a worldwide perception and the beginning of chance. A rafter dispersed. The truth was on the verge of being dispelled lately. The sourdough garden disposes of raincoats and dancing shoes, a lift on the next shuttle cabinet and mistress encoding. The gas and barometer inflection was a good connection to what was available. Walking stunted growth, tangy environment. Heaven sent then the lost cost of pretending to display the illusion of contentment. Resentment came from within. We spelled many words incorrectly before corrected. Writing withstood the grasp of the pendulum. There was something irate about the kitchenette and dining arrangements. I saw the rain fall as she left the rainforest. We moist and lemony. A lime green tablecloth, along with coughing and whining. Spending time was the plan, an original cup of tea planted and supplanted. Original order of business was too hard to digest, abreast of all changes, the brain damaged. Constantinople. Supple degree of all matter did not matter, linkage on the brink of subtle supposition and a gas filter of 20 degrees fed upon the grand station for debris and disorder. 250,000 serpents filled the dream of a family heirloom and grooming pushing the theater from one end to the other. Every night I looked at the gasket plumbing cycle, wild and intense. The doctor was taken aback by the knapsack and gritty contusion. Confusion was the mainstay for reason and the fruition of scattered indignation. Just trying to make hide or hair of the griffin standing in the window. The Black Widow gave Freedom a last phone call and left the tattered golden-haired in the window. The seal of approval and the dilemma crushed each toll of Seattle. They all talked. Riverday Wedge, Gulch Cooking Ham, and the garrulous Foundation. A fellow robin trailed fortunes, beautiful throw rug, a fair amount of breathing and special class treatment. Forgiveness is not in drugs. Dark light passing sensibly on the orange fried friction donor. There are no angels, just the incorrigible fact that uses the conflagration of supple Winnipeg. The fantasy seemed so appropriate until the dastardly destiny showered the grass, folded the debris. That job involves what? Special moniker, peignoir, pain, war, strictly unconscious behavior, lacquer and plaster jugular from the rains, broken jealousy, the continuation of verdict. They exposed shootings. They delved into the complete punk style. Virgin broadcast into the pool of Sphinx spelunker until the chore was left unspoken. Broken chastity and the forbidden outtake of experience. Each outcome was the work of many years of contemplation. The wonderment of nature, the unexpected chain of events turned the table round, and the desert was just a spleen split in two, and a tray boarding the grappling hook and chime cluttered the foremost, integrity blending the pulp. Forecast is still shaved beacon, Thursday night jitters. The system remained the same, only a scare and a holster suspended above the high-rise ladder, totally wheeled for the beginning of torture. A series of jolted belongings and sea breeze, scorching the turnstile table deluxe and combining the total erosion erasure, came to tangibility and lessons from across the globe. Kiosk intentionally and above all the glass clicker shoelace buckling wholly on the clink side of supposition and inhumane trollop seasonings. Heard it all before, united the history and memorized the grace that held the thicket beyond a seismic, sizable stand. Trichinosis cheesecake? all wanting something, grabbing at spires, and not trying to contend with the subterranean aqueduct igloo chain left behind the surfboard in twisting tide. Each and every one looked for bliss inside the touch gone far beyond the offering that made the forcible renegade change stripes and beach monkey wrench the final chapter. Channels ripped forward, squeezing noble slices, gilded harangue, farming scissors, and welded iron rod coverings for the independent. Sin converged with an outline especially gathered for winged desire and athletes challenging the lions. They baited the goat, hid the dog from its owner, and introduced another night of danceless wonder. Shoelaces, humble action, still looking for the same things as before. Motorcycle, helmet, loose pajamas. It was great for riding ice cream into the holster. All of that action so long awaited a glimpse of the treehouse hired hand defiling the lucid Euclid genius hidden away in the lake. A lack of visual individual stimulation could gild the rift so entangled that the species would melt in cougars eating replacement tangerines. Suspended Ouija boards for Count Beauregard, sentenced to the stool pigeon lackey. Every chime, every ring or insertion was due to the ignorant suggestions by Pan. His little blue flute in hand went whirling over the remote, sinister cupcake that Paris ordered. Rushing back to divinity, drunk on the leftist override and cult disorder, granted the little chief an iridescent little chef. Climbing towards the outskirts of the mountain getaway, hung on the terrace and blinded by a sure wind congress revolving around a pilot's split-second caress and a pinch of rodeo rotary dial cordless tone. Penchant for pinching. Penny pinching backstabbing mongrel. Recent pose suggests run, a lofty wind, chandelier, candelabra, glistening lake. The crush didn't last that long. Sturdy enough to ward off jubilant protest against bold and black cover johns like Long John coverlets. Sisters claiming the bid ride. Shuck the corn jive artist in unbelievable sinister log off. A lackadaisical appraisal would be enough to throw the garter at the bachelor party. Each wondrous feline hoped to replenish a vacant lot period play reenactment of illogical illegality. She wants to follow the quest out onto the front lawn, wrestle with the hydrant and drink root beer. It was coming together all too soon, the broken lip, bitter until the siege of good cadence kept the grilled cadet as large for a number of years. Enhanced dog years with rabbit years left the doggerel feckless, begotten superstar sinking into freckles kindled, reaching boundaries never before challenged in man's eyes.